Happy Friday, Beerfield Fantasy family. I want to give a big shout out today to the show sponsor, Squad QL, roster management assistant to help you win your league in 2018. Finding off the flames here, it's so hot. Squad QL gives you the advantage by directly connecting to any league on Yahoo, ESPN, or CBS, pulling in your roster, league settings, and scoring system to provide the recommendations on waiver moves, starting lineup decisions, and help you make some awesome trades to give you that extra advantage you need. Head to squadql.com to download the all-in-one fantasy football manager app. And if you play some DFS, like I know some of our listeners do, check out rotoql.com as well. It's the leading daily fantasy lineup optimizer, trusted by over 100,000 DFS players in America, available at rotoql.com. Let's hit the show. Happy Friday, Beerfield Fantasy family. Welcome back.
BFFF?
BFFF.
BF cubed. BF3?
BF3. All right, I hope you guys are excited for week 2. We had an interesting Thursday night game we just got through last night. Dan shaking his head. Sorry, Ravens fans. We're going to go ahead and preview the rest of the week 2 slate for you, recap the game that we just saw on Thursday night, give you all the news and injuries so you're all set for all your week 2 slates. But first, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Nick Sparts. Dan Theory across the table from me.
And Theory BFF. What's up, guys?
And Christopher Hopper to my left.
I need no introduction. At Hot BFF with 2 P's, though.
In case you want to find him.
In case I actually do need an introduction.
Hey, there might be some new people listening to the show. Some people may be jumping in here to get their week 2 help that they need. If you want to follow the show in general, it is at BeerfieldFF. That is Twitter, Instagram, and Untapped. If you like can art and beer reviews, check out those last 2. If you want to see us on YouTube, Beerfield Fantasy Football, go ahead and subscribe to the channel there. We are live at 10:30 in the morning on Sundays, Central Time, to answer all your start-sit questions, give you any breaking news updates, let you know who's active or inactive that day. We had about 15 people join us week 1. We're hoping to get that up even higher here for week 2.
Let's keep it rolling, guys.
And in addition, if you guys can do things to help us out, if you can like or comment on any of our videos, ask all your questions you want leading up into the week on the videos. I'll answer all of them for you. That helps drive traffic to all of our videos. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. That helps boost us there as well. And drop reviews on iTunes. If you want to help us even more and throw some cash our way, we have merchandise available, modeled by both Dan and Hopper right now.
Wait.
So check it out on YouTube if you want to see the hats and shirts. Or if you want, or we also have a Patreon available. DM at BeerfieldFF on Twitter or email beerfieldfantasy@gmail.com if you want some more info on any of that. But enough shameless self-promotion. Let's get a beer preview in. And fueling us today before we run through 16 games, a review, recap, and 15 previews is Just Tapped by Deschutes Brewery. It's their second time on the show. Last time was episode 56 when we recapped week 2 of the 2017 season.
Are we doing this on purpose?
No, it's not. I just grabbed it, checked.
We're good at things.
Third one in a row where we've accidentally been almost exactly a year off.
Yeah, I just checked the calendar and went, oh, that was well timed on my part. They're located in Bend, Oregon. Just Tapped is a passion fruit IPA, clocks in at 7.2% ABV and 58 IBUs. We'll give you a full review once we're through the noon games on the preview. Let's hit some news and injury reports.
News.
All right. So as we've kind of started doing on Monday in episode, I think I'm going to keep it going on Friday where we split news and injuries apart. So I'm going to do general news items first, and then stuff that's injury watching just specifically for week 2 will be separate from that.
I can use the injury drop again.
Oh, cool. We'll get to use that in just a moment. But something that broke from last night, NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, I think it is.
Pelissero. Whatever.
Bless you.
Bless you both.
He reports that Bengals, quote-unquote, fear Joe Mixon needs arthroscopic surgery. This is confirmed that he's going to have this done on Saturday. He's expected to miss 2 weeks.
That's a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, me too. Apparently, it's a minor knee scope.
Yeah, I thought, usually a month or so. I thought at minimum it would be a month, but 2 weeks is better. Just roll Gio out for those 2 weeks, throw Mixon on your IR, and then bring him back.
Apologies to anyone who may have dropped Gio, including myself.
Hopefully you can pick him back up.
Hopefully you can grab him
I
again.
think I may have done that.
Colts released running back Jeremy McNichols from the practice squad.
Jeremy McNichol watch on this show, folks.
Yes, we are the McNichol Central.
He may have gotten that drop more than anybody else in the history
He
of the
looks
show.
so good at Boise State, but then we forgot that you didn't tell us you can read.
And he's not Frank Gore.
You can't even do pictures either because those are in the playbook. So I'm pretty sure.
All right. Chargers tight end Hunter Henry with his ACL tear was seen running diagonal sprints in practice
This
on
is
Friday.
insane to me.
Reminder, he is not on IR.
Yeah.
Jesus.
He got some of that LaShawn McCoy blood.
And AP. He's drinking. Like he's a vampire. He's got to be a vampire.
Blood transfusion. He got a knee replacement, actually. That's why he'll be back so quick.
And not like a regular knee replacement. He just stole someone's leg and attached it to his own.
He just put a zip tie where the ACL is supposed to be, and he's back.
Jesus.
All right. After putting Delaney Walker on IR, the Titans signed tight end Michael Pruitt.
Okay.
To back up Jonnu Smith.
Yep. And Dolphins left guard Josh Sitton will miss the remainder of the season with a torn rotator cuff in his left shoulder.
I was talking with somebody about this earlier today, and that's actually worse news for Frank Gore, I think, than Kenyon Drake, just because Sitton's their best run blocker by far, and Gore was chunking away yardage between the tackles, which is primarily how he runs. And yeah, it's going to hurt Drake's efficiency a little bit, but it may force them to go outside or pass a little bit more, which is more Drake's forte than Gore's lately, just because he is older. He's kind of lost a step. He doesn't really get the edge anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that this hurts Gore more than it does Drake, but it definitely does hurt the run game. So don't overlook that. Josh Gooden's a very good run blocker.
Yeah, I knew he was a good enough player that it was significant enough to mention.
We're going to see more Kenyon Drake spin moves.
All right, let's talk about some of the injured players we're watching for fantasy purposes
It's
this
not
week.
Monday, but they're still hungover.
Monday hangovers.
Friday hangovers.
Friday hangovers. Whatever, it's the same thing. They just got really long hangovers.
Yeah, that's right. It's like Nick, back in the day.
All right, don't remind me. Some players that are they look like they're likely to play in week 2. It looks like Aaron Rodgers is going to go. It looks like Marcus Mariota is going to go, but apparently sharing time with Gabbert.
Because
Don't start Mariota.
Yeah.
Just don't even try.
I do not know what Mike Vrabel's doing.
Mike Vrabel doesn't know what Mike Vrabel's doing.
Shit.
Rookie head coaches.
I feel bad for anyone who has to throw him out there, which means he's probably going to go for like 303.
Blaine Gabbert, QB1.
Start the Texans defense, folks. For running back, it looks like Marlon Mack's going to get his first start of the season in week 2. Rex Burkhead and Sony Michel should both start this week.
Yep. That
real sour.
Patriot stuff just got sour, especially for James White. Yeah, that's not a great look, but more on that later. It just turned real sour for the Colts there too.
All right. And then for the wide receiver position, Deshaun Jackson managed to recover from his double whammy concussion shoulder. Ted Ginn's fine from his knee. Devontae Parker's going to give it a go with his broken finger, and Will Fuller looks to get his first start of the season.
Why does Jackson got to play? I like Godwin this week. I didn't love him.
I still like Godwin this week.
I know.
But,
Fuller will actually help the Houston offense. Like, even if he's not 100%, they're still going to try to take some deep shots with him if he plays.
all right. I'll give Hopper a brief moment to return here, and then if he has any thoughts on those four.
Fuller?
On Jackson, Ginn, Parker, and Fuller.
This was still probably going to play.
Yes.
These are likely to play.
Yeah, Ginn is the... Jackson, you saw flash a little bit last week, but I don't necessarily love what Tampa Bay is up against this week. Fuller, sure, you might get a couple deep shots, but Watson looked like crap, so I'd hold off there. Ginn is startable. That's about it.
Yeah, and Parker,
And Parker
just might hurt everyone else.
Just stay away from him.
All right, likely out for week 2. Devontae Freeman has been confirmed to be out. Darren Sproles confirmed to be out. It looks like Leonard Fournette is a game-time decision at best.
I still think he plays, which sucks because
He didn't-
if he does play, they already said on Monday that if he doesn't even practice, they plan on trying to run him out if he wants to try.
Yeah, he did not practice at all this week.
No, he didn't. So he's a true game time decision.
Yeah.
I don't expect him to play. So if you're an owner, make sure you have contingency plans there for.
And he's in
Fournette.
one of the late afternoon games, so
Yep.
it hurts you even more. You don't even get to know before the noon kickoff.
Who are the other two you mentioned?
Sproles and Freeman are both out,
So fire up Tevin Coleman, but it's not a great matchup for them. And
but he's going to get 20 touches.
but he'll
so
get
you're
20
starting him.
touches, so you're starting him. And then Sproles, They were going to use Ajayi more anyway. This is really a bone to Corey Grant. It gives him some flex consideration.
Corey Clement.
Corey Clement, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Corey Grant too.
I was going to say, and probably Corey Grant now.
Probably Corey Grant. But
Trying to look on the silver lining of things. If Freeman is out, we may get to see a little in-season action for Ito Smith, which could be fun.
that could be good
That's
also.
true. We could.
Wide receivers, Marquise Goodwin is out, so Pettis is a start.
Pettis is one of those
Yeah.
replacement guys that you really don't have to change anything for. He's got kind of a similar skill set to Goodwin. He can work downfield. He adjusts the balls well. It's going to be fun to watch him.
Yep, and he can always house a punt return, too. They just
Yeah.
let one up for Andre Roberts last week, so Pettis is a better returner than Roberts is.
Yep.
Paul Richardson is looking like he's not going to go with a shoulder.
I had no clue that he was even on the injury report.
Yeah.
I didn't either until
I was
today.
like, what the fuck? Well, good, because that means more Jamison Crowder, hopefully.
And then Travis Benjamin looks like he's not going to play, so it's going to be just Tyrell, Mike, and Keenan Allen.
All right, Mike.
All right.
I want to be like Mike. All right, that's all I've got for.
No, I have enough back problems.
All right, I've got.
There you go.
All right.
My neck's already starting to hurt. So
Well, before I lose myself too much here, let's hit Thursday night.
What the hell happened?
But seriously, Ravens fans, what the hell happened?
dude, I don't want to talk about it. Fucking, that may be the worst.
AJ Green happened.
The worst play calling at the end of a game I have seen.
I
Blatantly, we're gonna lose this game and not even try. Fuck it.
yeah. Did
That's
you
fucking
catch the end of the
terrible.
game or?
I caught all of it except for the last 2 minutes.
Okay, you.
That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, you would want to blow your brains out. It was.
it
awful.
was. You're just.
It was 5-yard dump offs over the middle with no timeouts left for the last drive.
just a lot of screaming.
Yeah, I missed that.
All right.
Everything else I saw.
For the Ravens, he was completely under fire on this one. Cincinnati was really getting after him pass rush wise. He went back into classic Flacco, sub 60% completion percentage. He threw 2 picks. He had a fumble. Given the passing volume, he had 55 attempts in this one. It should have been a much better game for him, but
He didn't have any time.
no, he was just getting smoked.
And he made a couple of throws when he was in the grasp on his way to the ground. One of his picks, his arm got hit on because he was just trying to get the ball out. He had no time, and I really think that the play calling hurt here also because I thought Alex Collins was running the ball relatively well.
And then they
was
weren't
Buck
giving him
Allen,
carries.
and they just weren't giving him carries. They weren't utilizing the running backs a whole lot at all. They kept trying to work the ball downfield, and you can't really do that. Geno Atkins and company are too good.
Yeah. Speaking of the backfield, it was basically a 50-50 split. Collins had one more touch than Allen did in this game. Allen got the first goal line carry, which he did manage to run into the end zone to vulture Collins owners. Collins was used more as a receiver than I think I was expecting in this one, and he looked good doing it. He was making plays after the catch. So Allen continues to be undervalued and should be owned in all leagues at this point, I think, especially any sort of PPR format.
We've talked about this.
And we may need to take a little bit of the value out of Collins. He's not nearly much of a stranglehold in his backfield as we were hoping.
Yeah, I mentioned this in the game previews, and this is you still got to monitor it. But yes, this is definitely something to watch.
Collins, though, from what you saw in film, though, the shiftiness was still there, the vision was still there, and everything. So
And he runs like Marshawn Lynch.
he does.
So yeah, hopefully he gets it. Hopefully they start feeding him more because they need to try
They
to keep these games under control.
They should.
He's everything Seattle wished they had in Rashad Penny.
Aww.
John Brown and Michael Crabtree look to really have a 1A, 1B situation here. 10 targets for both. Brown was the better one through the first 2 weeks, though. He had an excellent touchdown reception in this game. He had a crazy 45-yard reception that somehow went through a Cincinnati
Both
defender.
throws were underthrown too.
Yep, and he caught him through a guy on both of them.
Yeah,
Crabtree's not uncovering, from what I've seen.
he's never.
He's never been good at that, but he's
No,
not
he
winning
hasn't.
contested catches now either.
Yeah.
That's what it was last year.
For me,
too.
Crabtree's kind of a wide receiver 4 at this point, where Brown looks like he's probably more of a wide receiver 3 going forward.
He's got more boom to him too.
Yeah, he could give you a 20-point
If he's
game.
gonna keep, if he's gonna keep getting you 8 to 10 targets a game, that takes away the bust from him, which has been on that take since he's been in the league too.
Yeah. But the boom's still there.
Yeah, which is good.
And then Snead is definitely third fiddle. He was only at 5 targets until the last drive. It was mostly short stuff for him. I wouldn't read too much into it.
No,
fact that he had
especially
targets.
with Flacco liking to use the running backs and tight ends over the
He
middle.
threw 55 times. I've got to go someplace.
So all 3 tight ends got either 3 or 4 targets. So avoid all of them
It's still gross.
Still,
until Ben Watson comes in and hurts 2 of them.
Andrews got the touchdown though, didn't he?
And it was from the 1 yard line he got the touchdown.
You did.
Defense forgot to play for the first 25 minutes, and they never made up for it.
No, that was really sad too. I'm like, can we just start this game after, the 2-minute warning in the first half? Then I won't be negative in points.
Yeah, so I had Ravens in way too many spots this week.
They didn't sack Dalton once.
No sacks, no turnovers.
Even after Billy Price went down, no turnovers. It didn't give you anything.
Yeah, Mosley being hurt kind of killed that defense, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a knee bruise, so he's not out for the season, but he could miss up to like a month, they said.
It hurts him.
Yeah, so Ravens may be droppable at this point if he misses significant time. And they get, I think, Carolina next week.
Denver,
that's right. I knew it was not a pretty matchup.
Not a good matchup.
Not a lot of great things coming.
All right, on to the Bengals side where Dalton was basically really hot for about the first 20 minutes of the game, and then he was pretty mediocre after that. He threw 4 touchdowns, and the majority of his yards were in the first half. He could barely convert first downs in the second half. Though through 2 games now, the final picture is pretty solid. So if he's in decent matchups, he's worth starting at this point.
This was a bad
Shouldn't
matchup.
even been a decent matchup.
Yeah, he's been like historically bad against the Ravens. And
If you need quarterback help, it's worth a look though. 4 touchdowns is nothing to shake a fist at, and
No.
More of what I think was causing him to miss throws late wasn't him. It was the defensive backs just were playing good coverage, even though the pass rush couldn't get home. They couldn't pick him off, but there weren't people running open necessarily.
Yeah. And overall, I mean, he's looked solid for the most part.
Yeah,
he's stream worthy.
Mixon was fantastic while he was healthy, but he had to check out twice, and eventually we found out that it's a kind of a lingering issue he's going to get taken care of here, so he's going to miss the next 2 weeks. If he's out, Gio becomes valuable because he also looked pretty good in this game.
Yeah, he did. First off, Mixon looks like everything you hoped he would be through the first couple of weeks. You finally got to see it a little bit week 1 and definitely got to see it this week. Bernard was clearly second fiddle. He had the volume you wanted. He had the efficiency you wanted. But yeah, Gio's a fine start with the way the Bengals offensive line looks much improved.
So yeah, it must be the Bengals who have Carolina next week.
Well, yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
So yeah, Gio, not a great start next week, but you can probably fill him in as a running back 3 with Mixon missing.
I mean, if the O-line continues to be, they were a tad bit inconsistent. Mixon had like 5 or 6 negative plays that were not just because of him. I mean, because the O-line struggled too.
The Ravens are also one of the best run defenses in the league. So
I know. I'm just saying.
So Ravens completely forgot to cover AJ Green. Got 3 touchdowns on his first 3 receptions. Green and Boyd both had finished with 9 targets. That is your top receiving pair. I would say Boyd is a decently high wide receiver target going forward because they are going to throw the ball a significant amount, especially with Mixon out here.
Boyd should be claimed if he's not owned, finally.
Yep, and then Green has reconfirmed he's a top 12 wide receiver rest of season. If there are some people who seem to be doubting it, he is.
It's because of the offense. I don't think it was because of him.
He's finally got a wide receiver 2 opposite him, though, too, which
and Dalton.
Help.
And they're football again. And they're moving him into the slot, which I think is a good thing. Gets him some different coverages and gets him into some advantage situations.
Moving players around is a good thing.
Yes. No other receiver or tight end broke 4 targets, so all droppable. Bye, John Ross.
Yep.
Bye, Tyler Eifert.
Defense was solid for a second straight game. I think they're a high on streaming candidates, a straight up holdable at this point.
Yeah, I agree. That pass rush is something to be reckoned with as long as the secondary can hold up, and they have so far. That pass rush is getting home, so as long as they're healthy, you've got a good chance of picking up some points.
I just want to see them against a good, solid, balanced offense, but yes, they are definitely worth that.
Yeah, I may not want to start them against Carolina, but I also don't hate it.
Cam,
a little bit one-dimensional right now,
and they are.
They are,
and Cam will take his sacks. I mean, I don't see Atkins or Dunlap or those guys struggling on contain like some other teams do. Yeah. So, I mean, that could be a trap game.
I haven't seen week 3 yet, so we'll see.
All right.
We'll see.
Time to preview week 2.
Weekly preview.
Might as well start this on a high note. We're going to kick it off with Chiefs at the Steelers. Highest over-under of the week at 52.5. Hopper, who are we not starting in this week? Steelers favored by 4, by the way.
Not really anybody you're not starting of people that you probably own. Starting with the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, 4 touchdowns against a decent Chargers defense. Last week, Pittsburgh's allowed multiple touchdowns 6 times last season. 4 of those are at home. So basically you start him. Kareem Hunt, Steelers are giving up 5 yards a carry. Gave up 5 yards a carry 6 times last season on 10+ attempts, mostly to shiftier backs. Kareem Hunt's a start. Tyreek Hill, especially without Joe Hayden going, is a must start. Him and Mahomes just have this insane connection with each other. Sammy Watkins, 4 for 54 and 1 TD against the Steelers in 2016, which was his last time out against them. Game figures to be high scoring with a ton of throwing. You could do worse as a deep dart throw. Travis Kelce is the only one I'm a little cautionary on, but you're going to start him because he's a top 3 tight end.
You start your studs.
You start your studs, but the Steelers have only allowed two touchdowns to tight ends since the beginning of last season. So a little tempered on Kelce. Everybody else is pretty much a go for the Chiefs. As for the Steelers, first, and don't start their defense, for the love of God.
Don't start the defenses.
Start Butker, though, obviously.
Yes, very much start Butker.
Yep. For the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger, since 2015, he's averaged 320 yards, 2.7 touchdowns, and just over an interception per game at home. Chiefs defense gave up 400+ yards in week 1, so this is going to be a shootout. Ben's going to absolutely go off. Should be a lock for 350+ and at least 2, probably 3 touchdowns. James Conner was the only back used last week. Melvin Gordon went for 4.2 a clip. So you're absolutely going to start James Conner. He's going to be used. It's going to be high scoring. He'll be used in the passing game. For Juju, Kansas City let Mike Williams go for 81 yards. Juju's a much better, at this point anyway, wide receiver too. They've given up, the Chiefs have given up 9 100-yard receivers in the last 18 weeks. So definite offensive shootout here. You absolutely you start Juju. You're starting Antonio Brown. And then Jesse James is an intriguing tight end start if you need a fill-in. KC will give up catches and yardage to the tight end position. They had 6 over 60 yards last season. High scoring, high volume. So if you need somebody, if you lost Greg Olsen, you lost Delaney Walker, you could do a lot worse than that. Don't start the defense and start the kicker.
There is one note. Joe Hayden's doubtful to play Sunday.
I said that when I
did you?
I said that he probably wasn't going Sunday when I talked about Watkins.
Maybe
I talked about Hill.
Maybe Dan should listen.
But yes, Joe Hayden not going just solidifies that you start both wide receivers for the Chiefs.
All right. Dan, you kick us off with the next one. A little lower over under this one, 44 points for Dolphins at the Jets. Jets are favored by 3. Do you think their defense shows up again this week?
I like the matchup with the defense, but we'll start with the Dolphins here. Only 2 starts here, so I'm switching up how I'm doing my previews. Only 2 starts here, Kenyon Drake and Kenny Stills. The Lions struggled against the Jets front 4, or the Lions struggled on the run against the Giants front 4. Only averaged 2.6 yards per carry as a team. But Drake is also the pass catching back here. He should get enough volume as a game that should remain relatively close. Even if there's not a lot of scoring, there should be enough volume there. Also, the Lions running backs saw 10 targets as a whole, which makes his floor at least still there as a back and RB2 flex type of play. Kenny Stills is the number 1 receiver in this offense. He gets used in all 3 levels. The Jets also just gave up massive numbers to the Lions. This wasn't just when it was garbage time. This is when the game was still close and tied. 35 combined targets to the top 3, 18 receptions, 247 yards. Stills should easily see between 9 to 11 targets in this game. As for anybody else, you're not starting Tannehill. I wouldn't start Gore yet. We need to see more volume. And none of the receivers or tight ends here. Any other questions on the Dolphins?
Nope.
Jets here, your starts. I got just one. Quincy Nua. He saw 10 targets against the Lions on only 21 pass attempts from Darnold. That's nearly 50% target share for those at home.
It's good math.
That is fantastic for your number 1 receiver. I expect Darnold to have to throw a little bit more in this game. So a new one should be locked between 8 to 10 targets. As for my flex plays, I like Crowell. Same snap count with Powell, but I believe they were still trying to ease him back in because he missed most of the preseason. I believe the Jets are going to start going towards more Crowell as their main feature back and let Powell fall into the role that we've seen the last couple of years as a change of pace and pass catcher. And then the defense is a decent play this week. They're playing against a far shittier offense than the Lions and they saw. So there might be some chance for some sacks and picks here from Tannehill.
Especially with sitting out now. That definitely helps out that defense.
Yeah, and then as for your sits, I loved what I saw from Darnold last week, but you still can't trust him this year. And there's just too many good streaming options this week. I mentioned Powell. I just don't think I think he's going to start losing snaps. And I think we're going to still have to see how this backfield shakeups before I can trust him. And then
I would like to, because I'd like to be confident starting Crowell.
Yeah. I mean, I'm, just like I said, as a flex play for Crowell, I like him, but I'm not confident.
And I'm still waiting to see how it shakes out more between Pryor and Anderson for who the true number 2 is, because they were
and that's why they're
pretty low. They were low volume for both of them last week.
Yep.
That's that for them.
All right, that was a quick one. Let's go ahead and jump over to Browns at the Saints, which is the second highest over-under this week. Saints favored by 9, 50-point over-under on the track.
So it's mostly the Saints. Got it.
All right, Tyrod Taylor actually is a borderline start in this one, and I think Dan actually has him rated as a start.
He's a floor play at best in a game that's going to be high scoring. I love him this week.
So he completed just 37.5% of his passes last week, was at under 5 yards an attempt, and he was the number 6 overall quarterback.
In the pouring, pouring rain. So.
Yep. So scoring should be higher in this one. Conditions are much better inside the dome on the fast track as opposed to being in a monsoon. So if you're in a situation where maybe Rodgers scares you against the Vikings when he's hobbled, if you have Matt Ryan, you're still waiting for Wentz to get back. Tyler's was probably your second best streaming candidate this week behind Alex Smith. Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson were both pretty quiet last week. Carlos Hyde was at 2.8 yards a carry and on 22 attempts. Duke was at 25 total yards. But I like him better this week on the fast track and what should be a higher scoring game. Hyde is a low running back 2. Johnson should be a mid to low running back 3 for you as a flex consideration.
I love
play.
Johnson this week.
Yeah, I hope he gets involved more, but I want to see it before I
Yeah.
fully push my chips in. Jarvis Landry was amazing in week 1. 106 yards on 7 receptions with 15 targets in just a downpour. And a lot of them were downfield. He had two catches that were over 30 yards in the air, which is not classic Jarvis Landry at all. Somebody posted his route tree. I forget who it was on Twitter, but he's running the same routes Antonio Brown ran in Todd Haley's offense.
Yeah.
So he is running the number 1 role. There is some serious upside here. I have him as a back-end wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2 this week. He was my wide receiver start of the week this week. Gordon, I'm a little less rosy on. He only had 3 targets on 69 snaps. It should go up here, but I'm not fully confident in him until we see a little bit more out of that. So I got him as a back-end wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4. And then Njoku at this point is rising just due to attrition from the tight end position.
Tight ends don't.
That's how it was last year.
Attrition's your best friend. Then.
So I'm targeting tight ends right now that I are seeing high scoring games that should get multiple red zone opportunities. So right now that is Njoku. We all got him as a low tight end 1, and we expect him to look much better this week than he did in the pouring rain last week. Anything else on the Browns?
No.
Jumping over to the Saints. So with another high over under game, no Mark Ingram. Breeze is going to be just a locked in top 2 or 3 quarterback this week. He accounted for 439 of his team's 482 total yards in week 1, and it might not be that much lower of a split here in week 2.
Nope.
Expect another 40-plus attempts out of him in high scoring affairs. He's Dan's number 1, and he's my number 2, and Hopper's got him 5 at the lowest.
Yeah, he's top 5 easily.
So Kamara only had 29 yards rushing in week 1, and he still finishes the number 1 running back with 3 rushing touchdowns and catching 9 balls for 112 yards.
That's why.
Dude just gets volume or targets.
Dude just is efficient at everything he does.
Yeah. So
Yes, he does.
at this point, just don't worry about it. He's a top 5 play, and don't even overthink it.
You could probably make lasagna in half the time just because he's that efficient.
And we apologize for Jonathan Williams and Mike Gillisley. We thought they were going to get touches. Turns out they're not. So don't worry about them. Drop them if you still have them.
I just did.
This just in.
For Chase
one of them
Edmonds.
goes off this week.
Probably. Michael Thomas is an easy top tier wide receiver 1 this week. He's top 4 for all of us. Volume will be there without question. The only other receiver I want, if he plays, which it looks like he will, is Ted Ginn. I've got him pegged as a wide receiver 4. You guys have him as a wide receiver 3. Should be a decent play, but the secondary for the Browns is better than Tampa Bay, so don't expect quite as easy of a slate he had in week 1. I also don't mind Watson here because Cleveland is terrible against tight ends for a few years now, and they don't seem to have that problem quite fixed. They just let Jesse James go for 60 yards on 3 receptions last week, and the Steelers don't even really use Jesse James.
Not a whole lot. No.
So he's a high tight end 2 for us if you've got no better options available. Maybe once again lost Olsen or Walker. Saints defense is an acceptable but not amazing start this week. It's at home. They're favored highly. You might be able to do better just with the high over under, and
You hope
Taylor
they bounce
doesn't throw a
back
lot of
some.
turnovers.
Yeah, I'm still a little nervous.
And then I love Lutz in the dome with a 50-point over.
That I agree with.
Yeah.
Hopper onto the Colts at the Redskins. How in trouble are the Colts? And is this with a 46.5 point over under and Redskins favored by 5.5?
They're a little bit in trouble. So Andrew Luck, start your studs, I guess. The Colts are going to play from behind in this one, I have a feeling. Redskins defense isn't exactly scary, so there should be enough volume for Andrew Luck to make him a top 7-ish quarterback. For the running game here, this is where it gets a little messy. So Washington's allowed over 75 scrimmage yards to 11 backs since last season. However, they needed volume to do it. None of those backs were under 14 touches. So with Marlon Mack potentially slated to go, I kind of want nothing to do with this backfield. Just because to get it done against Washington, you've needed volume, and I don't know who the volume is going to go to. You would hope Mack, but he's coming off injury, so I just kind of want to avoid this backfield. I understand if you're looking for an upside play, probably Hines, maybe. Wilkins is a deep flex play, but if you should be able to avoid this. On the wide receiver side, Hilton, you're going to start based on volume and game script alone. Ryan Grant, I'd only give deep league consideration. Washington's allowed 7 wide receiver twos to catch more than 4 balls with kind of mixed results. Most of them were speed guys, which Ryan Grant isn't necessarily, but is getting volume. He's like the season-long Brandon LaFell rule.
Yes.
But we're not going to rename it.
No.
And then at the tight end position, Jack Doyle, Eric Ebron, both with their targets should be startable this week. Doyle more so than Ebron just from volume, but Ebron could do fine for you. Washington's allowed 8 touchdowns to tight ends and it is going to give up 3 yardage. Colts targeted both guys effectively in week 1, something Luck has always done with multiple tight ends. So I think you can start them both. Vinatieri is fine. Other than that, obviously don't ever start Indy's defense. Anything else on the Colts?
Nope.
All right. As for the Redskins, Alex Smith is probably one of my favorite streaming options, if not my favorite streaming option this week. Indianapolis tied for the most 300-yard games allowed since last season began. They're tied for second in most multi-touchdown games allowed, so absolutely start him. This game script should be good for Chris Thompson. I believe that it's close enough to where they have to keep throwing, but Peterson also was fed, and I think that he still gets plenty of volume in this one. Colts are pretty inept on defense. That's not a secret to anyone. They've only allowed 2 receiving touchdowns to running backs since the beginning of 2017, but other than that, they should both have yardage to go on it, if anything. For Jamison Crowder, especially with Paul Richardson not playing, Colts have allowed 26 wide receivers over 50 yards. There's no real other threat. So Crowder, look for him to bounce back. I wouldn't shy away from him. And Jordan Reed, I'm also loving this week. Since the start of the 2015 season, he has 14 games with a touchdown, which is 4th most. He's got the 7th most 50-yard receiving games over that same stretch. He's missed 31 games in that time span, though. And he's still
Really 6?
Yeah, he's still top 10 in those categories. So it doesn't matter that the Colts traditionally haven't given up a lot of yardage to tight ends because, well, you don't normally have to throw to them because your wide receivers can get it done. He's the second or third receiving option on this team, depending on if Chris Thompson's getting fed heavy or not, and you start him.
Yeah, and if you're in a really, really, really deep league, this is such a good matchup that I don't even hate running Doxson out there this week.
Yep.
He caught Peterson last week, which kind of explained the crap stat line.
Yeah.
Maybe if I felt more confident, Smith throwing deep more to guys who can't separate.
I don't, though. He won't throw to people.
I don't.
He won't throw to people.
I don't like
that
Doxson.
don't
Well,
separate.
I think he can separate against this team.
Maybe.
We'll see.
All right. Anything else in this game?
No, Hopkins is fine. Don't start Washington's defense.
All right. Eagles at the Buccaneers. Dan, you got this one. Eagles favored by 3.5 on the road. 44-point over/under on this one.
A lot of starts here. We'll start with Jay Ajayi here. He's on a pitch count last week. He was battling. Was it a foot injury last week? That it was.
Yes, it was his foot.
That's why he was on that pitch count. They came out and said almost right away that because he's going to be healthier, they expect him to see a much more uptake in targets or in touches. And just how bad the running game looked last week. And he was the only bright spot there. That was the only reason why he even kept getting more work. So I love him this week against the Bucs. As for Nelson Aguilar, he simply gets volume. It's short, so PPR leagues is far more valuable. But the Bucs got torched by wide receivers last week, so he could get some more deep shots. I believe he had 1 deep target last week as well. Then Ertz, you're not going to sit him. So, and as for the Eagles DST, yes, Fitz killed the Saints, but I don't expect 2 games in a row of him putting up numbers like that. And we've seen this story before. It's kind of like the QB version of Jared Cook, where it's not as likely to see massive turnover or a massive consistency from that high of a standpoint. So I like the DST this week, and then Jake Elliott should have a chance to kick some points. or kick some field goals.
Kick some points.
Kick some points. I guess that works. Kind of works.
It does. He's
It does.
kicking you points.
Then as for flex plays, Nick Foles, this is a good matchup for him. I just like other streaming matchups, so you could play him if you need to. With Sproles out, I like Corey Clement here. He's going to see an uptick in targets. He should get all the passing work, and he is the best pass blocker amongst the running backs here, which could help if the Bucs start to get home. And then even Mike Wallace, in a game where the Bucs got torched by, Ted Ginn and Michael Thomas, maybe Mike Wallace can get himself some targets. Also had 3 deep targets last week for him against a much better fucking secondary. Any more questions, comments, concerns?
Not really.
Eagles?
On the Eagles, no. I think you hit the nail on the head with most of that.
I did laugh at you like you're going to sit Hurts.
like you're going to sit Ertz.
Yeah, you're not sitting Ertz.
As for the Bucs, 1 start, Mike Evans. You start your studs. You drafted Mike Evans likely in the top 3 rounds, mostly as your wide receiver 1 or 2. And we got to see from Fitz, and what he's done historically with the Bucs team is he uses his receivers more. I believe Mike Evans was 3 or 4 or 5 points per game more with him instead of Winston. So you may not get a ceiling day from him, but you will get his floor. As for flex plays, Peyton Barber and Chris Godwin, I'm slightly hesitant on Chris Godwin with Deshaun Jackson likely to play, but I still like him here. As for Peyton Barber, he's going to see enough volume. There's no there's no Charles Sims, to take away any passing work. Jacquizz Rodgers is nothing more than just a change of pace back. So Barber should get not a great matchup, but he should get his volumes to at least give you a low end flex play
and a shot at a touchdown.
A shot at a touchdown. Yeah, he is the guy. As for his Fitz, I don't expect him to do this again. You got cute last week. You probably won't again. And as the tight ends, I don't care if O.J. Howard is worth Devin Funches. You're not playing him this week.
Somebody's going to say, yeah. Nope.
He got 2 targets in a game that put up 88 combined points.
And
that's it.
Somebody's going to start Fitzpatrick this week, and somebody's going to regret it. Don't chase points. That's your reminder.
Yeah. Keep an eye on the matchups.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Yeah.
Jumping over to Chargers at the Bills. Who's excited for this one? Woo! Chargers are favored by 7.5 on the road.
I am, just because the Chargers are a top 10 team for me.
All right. 43 over under on this one. For the Chargers, Flacco managed to finish as quarterback 6 this past week against the same Bills team. So fire up Rivers. It's a plus matchup for you. There's only a couple options that prefer over him this week. Melvin Gordon is absolutely a top 3 play this week. They just allowed 3 touchdowns to 3 different Ravens running backs last week, including one who apparently was running on a gimp knee and got put on IR afterward.
Aaron Rodgers?
Yes, he now plays running back for the Ravens.
And then he's also getting more. Gordon seems to be getting even increased usage in the passing game over what he saw last year. So that even insulates his floor even more for you. So absolutely keep him as a top 3 running back play this week. And if you're desperate, Eckler's not even bad flex play in this matchup. They might be up early and switch to Eckler if they don't want to run Gordon too much. So yeah, overall, great setup for both those guys in this game. Keenan Allen should get plenty of work at this one, and he draws their worst corner, which is Raphael Bush, out of the slot. He's an 8th-year quarterback who's never had more than 600 snaps in a season.
Nick went deep.
Mike Williams, Tyrell Williams are more dicey. They're going to catch the outside corners. Both are significantly better. I'd start Mike Williams if I'm picking one because he did play significantly better in week 1. And with no Travis Benjamin, the snaps between those two should be much closer. Gates is a bench until he starts seeing significant snaps. I'm not touching Virgil Green. Defense is 100% a must start. I expect a bounce back game this week. And Chargers kickers continue to be cursed, so don't even think about it.
No Caleb Sturgis.
Yep, for the Bills, this will be real quick. Don't get cute and start Josh Allen. LaShawn McCoy is barely a running back 2 in this matchup, and I think that's basically because I expect them to at least try to use him a little bit more this week.
I hope.
Maybe.
I don't know. I'm still only running him out if I have to.
Yeah. Benjamin is our highest-ranked pass catcher at wide receiver 5. So don't even think about that.
I don't think I ranked them.
Charles Clay's not even ranked for any of us, and don't think about the kicker or defense. So basically toss all of it out. The Bills are basically a college team right now. Sorry, Taylor.
Right.
Moving on to Panthers at the Falcons. 6-point favorites for the Falcons, 44.5-point over-under. Lots of injuries on the Falcons side.
So, fun fact on Cam Newton first off, starting with the Panthers. Since he entered the league, he has more rushing yards against Atlanta than Mark Ingram, Jonathan Stewart. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Well, then Mark Ingram and Doug Martin, definitely more than Jonathan Stewart.
I mean, maybe?
Maybe. Probably. But regardless. Oh, no. Yes, Jonathan. Wow.
All right, Hopper, these are your notes. Come on.
No. I got confused. And I'm like, wait, Jonathan Stewart plays for the Panthers. Oh, wait. It makes sense that he would run against the Falcons.
Yes, it
You
would.
don't try to figure my mind out. Anyway, I'm going to start that over. Can I start that over?
No, just continue.
Basically, Cam Newton destroys the Falcons on the ground. He's had more rushing yards against them than any other long-term running back, or really any running back over the last since he came into the league. He's also rushed for the second most touchdowns out of anyone against them in that time frame. So he's a running back one. Cam Newton is.
Yep. Well, also happens to throw occasionally.
Who you can put in your quarterback spot, and he does throw on occasion. Christian McCaffrey. Start him. Just start your studs. Tim Back's got 5 or more balls against Atlanta since the start of 2017. And he averages about 4 yards a carry when he carries the ball 10 or more times in a game. Devin Funchess, definitely more worthy of a start than OJ Howard is. He's a wide receiver 3 for me. 5 for 86 and 2 for 48 and 1 against Atlanta last season. Very clearly the best option that's not a running back on this team at the moment. Then Ian Thomas, tight ends with 4+ targets, fared pretty well last season. As 8 of the 15 went for over 45 yards. This team's going to need pass catchers. However, Atlanta's only allowed 4 touchdowns to tight ends since the start of last year. He's a fine replacement level play if you're desperate, but there are other streamers I like, Ben Watson, for example, to where you can afford to kind of hold him and wait and see what he does. Anything else on the Panthers?
Nope, they don't have a ton of options right now.
Very chalk.
No, they don't. As for the Falcons, Matt Ryan has had over 300 yards in both games versus the Panthers last season, going for 2 touchdowns in one and 1 in the other. So he's kind of streamable. Kind of a mid-tier streamer. I don't love him.
I like
don't
so
hate
much
him.
more.
There are a couple guys I like more, but I mean, if you're drafted him, you're fine. You're desperate, you're fine. He fared well against them last year. Neither Freeman or Coleman did much in this matchup last year, and I guarantee you Freeman's not going to do much in this one because he's not playing. Only 6 backs for over 4 yards per carry against Carolina last season. Receiving backs did fare somewhat better. Coleman's a running back too because he's getting the start.
Yeah.
Pretty much. It's not a great matchup, but he's getting the start, so you start him. You're obviously starting Julio Jones. As for Sanu and Ridley, I don't trust either of them until you really figure out who's going to get the targets and who's going to do what, so I'd keep both of them on your bench. Yeah. And Hooper, Carolina will give up some touchdowns to the tight ends. Only 3 guys were over 50 yards against him last season. Only 4 over 40. You've got better options than Hooper.
Yep.
All right. And with that call, I assume we're done with that game. Vikings at the Packers up next. Packers favored by 1.5 at home. 47-point over-under in this one. Dan, what do you think happens? And is that a fair over-under?
If Rodgers decides not, it depends. It really does. This game could be high scoring. This game could. I bet you this game goes slightly under, and it flirts with the over because of a last-second touchdown by Rodgers. Your starts for the Vikings. Sunday night is a little bit difficult game to judge how good this Packers defense is against the pass, but they gave up the 4th most points to QBs to the QB position 2017 and 18 points per game. Vikings have a top 5 offense, and Cousins just finds ways to score points. This is a plus matchup for him. You throw him out there. I think is an auto start for me. Cooks is another start. You drafted Cook as an every week starter. You probably took him in the 2nd round, back into the 1st. And plus, with the way that Cousins uses his running back in the passing game, it just makes his floor even higher. As for the receivers, of course, you will start Diggs and feeling like Cook. You drafted him to be your number 1, 2, at worst 3, depending on when you take them. Diggs is the upside play, as we saw from last week and through some of the preseason. And then with Thielen, he is the guy, he's their main slot guy. Drew 12 targets last week. And with the Green Bay backfield, or with the Green Bay secondary being a lot of rookies and young starters, there should just be a lot of big plays here. So I love them both this week. Their defense, you can get a little bit hesitant with Rodgers playing, but he's banged up, and I fully expect Mike Zimmer salivating at the mouth right now, figuring out ways to fucking lay the hammer on him. Rodgers may die in this game. That offensive line's pretty garbage. And I think they're going to find ways with these sacks to kind of help offset the potential points and yards that they'll give up. And then you'll start Daniel Carson because, good offense. Flex play this week, Kyle Rudolph. I know it's going to be hard to sit him, but with the potential rise of these new good streaming options and Kittle, Doyle, Reed, and Cook, all 4 of them I have ranked higher than Rudolph this week. You may be able to land one of them to start over him. He only got 2 targets. Yes, one was in the end zone, but it's hard to. You don't want to trust the tight end that much. As for Murray, you can try to flex him, but I'm not as high on him this week. I have him as a sit. I didn't put it, but I have him as a sit.
I would assume yes.
Yes. As for the Packers, any more notes? You got questions, Nick? Vikings?
Nope.
As for the Packers, your starts are obviously going to be Rodgers and Adams. With Rodgers playing, you have to play him. You can try to get cute, though there are guys I like more that could be on the waiver wire, as in Big Ben, Phillip Rivers, Alex Smith, and Kirk Cousins. I doubt that Cousins and Rivers and Big Ben were in waivers, but maybe you're able to pick up Smith. But if not, then you may have to just play him this week. It's just kind of how it goes. As for Adams,
I don't know why Hopper's being weird, but continue down.
As for Adams, you draft him to be your wide receiver 1 or 2 at worst. This isn't a great matchup. Rose is fantastic, but he should get enough volume to at least give you a floor type of day, something around 5 receptions for 50 yards. Flex plays are Randall Cobb, kind of Jimmy Graham. Randall Cobb, just because he's going to probably drop Mike Hughes, who will play the slot role. Rookie Cobb's a veteran, will find ways to create separation, and is what we saw last week against the Bears. Rodgers tended to trust him when the game was more on the line. He also led the team in targets, I believe, with 10. And they saw last week that the Vikings struggled against these over-the-middle type of players like Kittle, Pettis when he came in. Even Garcon got into the matchup. And as for Jimmy Graham, just like Rudolph, it's going to be hard to sit him if you didn't find a replacement. And you're basically praying for a touchdown. So hopefully you found somebody. As for the sits, the running backs, hot mess, bad matchup. Maybe Tymon getting some pass catching work to save his day as more of a floor day. And you're not going to play Jordan Allison. It was nice, but this is a very difficult matchup, and he'll draw either Waynes or Rhodes, depending on where they line him up. Anything else in the Packers?
Nope.
No.
Just keep an eye on if Rodgers is playing. If he's not, that basically sinks the majority of the Packers.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap up the noon games here. Texans at the Titans. Texans are favored by 2 in this one, 40.5 point over-under. Deshaun Watson had a real ugly week 1, but he does get an okay matchup here against the Titans. Tannehill managed to put up 2 touchdowns and about 300 yards against him last week, and I like him a lot more if Will Fuller can go. He looked a little lost without him last week, and having that deep weapon may help clear out some room for Hopkins as well. I got him viewed as a kind of a back-end QB1, high-end QB2, so you may be playing him this week, especially if you don't have any better options available on the wire. Texans gave up over 120 yards last week to Gore and Drake, and Miller is going to see the majority of the workload. You're really hoping he doesn't get vultured by Blue again, but he still profiles as a mid-running back too, just based on volume alone. And this is a team that missing some outside linebackers you can run against. Hopkins always is a must-start. Not going to spend a lot of time on him. He should get a better game this week against a worse secondary. Fuller is expected to play. If he does, I actually kind of like him as a wide receiver 3. Stills, who profiles very similarly to Fuller, just went for 2 touchdowns against the same defense in week 1. Tight ends are a mess. There's 3 guys getting snaps. I don't want to start any of them right now. Defense this week, they're getting a banged up Mariota, or Blaine Gabbert, or possibly both. So I like them a lot. I don't really want to go with the kicker with the lower over-under. I don't expect a ton of scoring in this game. On the Titans side, Mariota might not even play, and if he does, he's limited. I don't want to start any Titans quarterback this week. Lewis, I have as an excellent mid to high running back too. He's heavily involved in the passing game, looked awesome in week 1, and thoroughly outplayed Derrick Henry. This is a team that they're going to struggle to run against the front 7, so I love him as kind of a change of pace guy. Try to spread the field maybe a little bit more and get 7-8 targets again like you got in week 1. In addition, at this point, I don't want nothing to do with Henry until we start seeing him get 15-plus touches week in and week out. He had 10 in week 1. So he's in running back 3 at best. For the receivers, Davis is the only one I'm trusting because he's the only receiver on that team that saw more than pass catcher on that team that saw more than 3 targets that's going to suit up this week. Rest in peace, Delaney Walker. He saw 13 in week 1. I'm expecting he sees 10-plus again in this one. He's a low wide receiver 2, high wide receiver 3 in a tough matchup with poor quarterback play, but volume will get him there alone. Defense did cause 2 turnovers in week 1. Fuller's in, though, so I'm benching the Titans defense. I don't mind Suckup, though, because if this team can get in field goal range, he's a very reliable kicker. He's one of those guys who's safe enough that you can start him even if it's not a great matchup for you. You might be able to do better, but if that's all you have available, Suckup is fine. That's all I got in the noon games. Let's hit a beer review.
Oh, it's like there's a script that I wasn't paying attention to.
As opposed to which episode?
the early ones. I'm going to need another beer to review it, by the way.
Duckies.
All right, so I'm going to try to open this and do this at the same time. So from Deschutes Brewery, we've just tapped Passion Fruit IPA on. What'd you guys think? And I'll let Hopper take his sip here. So, Dan, you kick us off.
Well, as he's having his second one, I'm assuming he liked it a lot. The passion fruit really sticks out. There's a lot of crisp, a lot of fruit notes from the front. I don't get a lot of the hoppiness until more the back end of it. Does a fantastic job. I'm not even a big fan of passion fruit, but I love this beer.
Yep, it's good. Everything Dan just said is spot on. What I get off of this also, there's passion fruit up front, real crisp coming through the real nose of it, and then there's just kind of a moderate hoppy bitterness that lingers at the end. They did a great job with this one.
Yep, but the passion fruit doesn't go away either. It's still passion fruit on the back end too. So
it's just,
passion fruit all the way through.
There.
I don't actually know what passion fruit tastes like.
I have no clue. I just know that I liked it that much.
Have any of us ever actually had a passion fruit not in beer?
No, I have not.
I haven't either.
So I think we may need to try some passion fruit to know what the hell that is.
The Beerfield fruit ball. Don't laugh.
Beerfield eats fruit.
Don't
Fantasy fruit ball.
Beerfield fantasy fruit ball. I'm drafting watermelon. Just kidding. I hate watermelon.
Pineapple.
Pineapple
101.
Sure. All right, and with that, we're moving around onto the 3 o'clock games.
I didn't mean to do that. I was trying to move my mouse.
Another beer review.
I need a second one now to review this one again.
All right, Cardinals at the Rams. Rams are favored by 13 in this game. Are we going to expect anything out of the Cardinals?
Jesus.
Hopper, what are we seeing here?
Sam Bradford.
Dead.
Don't do it.
Not even once.
David Johnson, start your studs. Larry Fitzgerald. I'd seriously temper expectations given the secondary in this offense. You're starting no other wide receiver. Fitzgerald, you start if you have to. If you've got a better guy you drafted later, like maybe a Kenny Stills, for example, then I would do that. As far as Ricky Seals-Jones, he's about the one I like the most here. Arizona's going to have to use the tight end to stay away from these corners. This is the Rams' weakness. Cook was 9 for 12 for 180 yards against him, while the wide receivers were busy doing nothing for Oakland last week. And dating back to last year, the Los Angeles has given up 2 100-yard tight ends in their last 4 games. So that's how you attack them. That's how they're going to have to attack them. That's how they're going to have to get after them. So I would RSJ as a start. Everybody else I'm kind of mad on.
And then bury the rest.
Bury everything.
Everything.
On to the Rams. Jared Goff. Cardinals don't give up a ton of yardage. Only 4 of the last 17 games have gone over 250, but 10 of those have come with multiple touchdowns. So could be probably similar to what you got from Goff last week. Todd Gurley, start your studs. As far as the wide receivers go, Cubs most likely to perform. He had over 50 yards in both contests last year with a touchdown. Slot receivers tend to fare better against the Cardinals. Expect that Brandon Cooks gets the Patrick Peterson shadow.
I assume it's either him or Woods. I don't know which.
It's going to be him or Woods, but it's definitely not Kupp. So I would go ahead and run Kupp out there. Probably Cooks on that. Woods, I don't know. If I had to start another one, it would probably be Cook just because he has the opportunity to boom.
I like Kupp the most this week.
But I like Kupp the most easily. The defense, start him, and Zerline, start him because, of course, you're not cutting him.
Yeah, he's like the only kicker that scores like a running back.
Yep. And that's all for that one. That was quick because the Cardinals are terrible right now.
All right. Lions at the 49ers. Speaking of might be terrible.
No, won't be as quick.
49ers favored by 6, 48-point over-under.
So your starts here, Matthew Stafford, both the starting receivers, and Matt Prater. As for Stafford, bad week against the Jets, obviously. But the volume was there. A couple bad drops in the end zone. This could have really changed his day. And the Niners just gave up 244 and 2 to Cousins the week before. I really like Stafford this week. The volume's there. As for the receivers, they're going to be the main reason why I like Stafford this week. 23 targets for both Tate and Jones combined this past week. Volume is not a problem. Start them like you normally would. Both Thielen and Diggs had great weeks. Had good to great weeks last week against them. That's their role here. Prater, he's sort of a good kicker and a good offense. Flex play, I'm a big fan of Kenny Galladay. I think I'm ranked as a starter, but I think he's more flex for this point for most people. He led the team in snaps for receivers last week, tied for second in targets. With just the amount of volume from Stafford, I think Galladay is a fine flex play. With no running game and a bad defense, you're going to have to continue to throw. And the way that they use Galladay in this over the middle and intermediate routes, there's a lot of big plays for him to happen. Sitting in the running backs here, don't like anything here. I think Blunt should just be fucking cut at this point, just because I want to see Johnson more, who he looked good in the minimal targets or with the minimal touches he got last week. So you can't trust him yet, but you have to still sit Johnson. And as for the game straight, I don't like Theo as much. I think this one's not going to be in their favor. Any questions on the Lions? Not starting the tight ends or defense.
No, it's the receivers and that's it. And Stafford.
Receivers and Stafford and Prater. As for the Niners, you're going to start Jimmy G. I had a good one if you play, but he's not playing.
So 7 Pettis.
And Garcon, and then Kittle and Gould. The Lions just made Darnold look like a QB1.
Gould. Spooky.
The Lions just made Darnold look like a QB1 out there, so I love Jimmy G in this bounce back week if you need a good streaming option because Rodgers may be concerned, Matt Ryan, all those good things. So good streaming candidate for Jimmy G this week. And then as for the receivers with Garcon, or with Goodwin out, I like Garcon and Pettis as starts and flex. If you're kind of desperate for a receiver, that's where you can throw Pettis in. Love Kittle this week. He was able to do really well, against a very strong Vikings defense. He's the safety net for Jimmy G. 9 targets, 5 catches for 90 yards this past week. He is I believe a top 5 play for me this week, and he's quickly becoming the popular streaming starter if you didn't land one of the big 3 tight ends. Flex plays this week for the Niners. The running backs here, the Jets just ate up this front 4. Both had great starts. I would probably lean Morris because they can get more up the middle for here. Breda was more efficient last week, but that's because the game kind of just called for that. This Lions team sucks between the tackles in terms of their defense. So Morris should have a good bounce back this week. I wouldn't play the defense either. Anything from the Niners? Anything else from the Niners? No, that's it.
That's a pretty straightforward game. It looks like. All right, this one's going to be a little uglier. Patriots at the Jaguars. Patriots favored by 1.5 on the road. 45-point over/under in this one. So you've got Brady running the Jaguars at the road. He's just a back-end quarterback one this week. I would try to avoid it if at all possible. You may have a better option like Smith or Taylor available. He put up it was about 270 and 2 in the playoffs last year against him. So don't expect a real explosion type game from Brady in this one. Backfield is also going to be a complete mess in this game. Michelle's going to be active. It looks like Burkhead's going to go. White is there as always. All their running backs last year managed just 97 yards between Lewis, Burkhead, and White in the playoffs last year, and White was the one with the rushing touchdown for some reason from a yard out. Probably not in a volume in this one for anyone to be amazing. If I'm picking one, I'm going Burkhead, but he's just in a running back 3, flex play at best. I don't want anything to do with Michelle and White. I'm avoiding with all the bodies right now. If you're going to try to succeed against the Jaguars, it's against their slot corner. So Amendola went for 784 and 2 in the playoffs against them last year. So if you're going to start one of their receivers, I want to do Philip Dorsett of any of them. He's the one who's most likely to get some decent volume. He's the most likely one to be used in the red zone right now if they can't get to Gronk. So overall, I like him a lot. Hogan was 2 for 20 in last year's matchup in the playoffs, and he had a disappointing week 1, so I'm putting him on timeout. Don't want anything to do with Chris Hogan this week. It is a bad matchup for Gronk. He went 1 for 21 and 0 in the playoff matchup, but he's an auto start. Just lower expectations accordingly, as we've been saying a lot in the first couple weeks here. Lower those expectations.
Yep.
I actually don't mind the Patriots defense, especially when it looks like there's probably not going to be Fournette. They're more of a high-end streamer, but if you like some of the top-tier options, it should be a good matchup. Shouldn't be a ton of points scored by the Jaguars, and they do tend to cause some turnovers and get some sacks out of it. So overall, pretty solid there. I actually do not like Gostkowski at all in this one. Shouldn't be a lot of points scored, which is the main thing that keeps him going, because his kicking percentage has not been good for the last couple of years.
Nope.
On the Jaguars side, do not consider Bortles. It's not a good enough of a matchup. They're going to be leaning on Yeldon and Grant most likely and trying to keep their defense off the field as much as possible to limit Brady. Sounds like Fournette's limited or out, so I don't like him. I do like Yeldon more than him right now. He's probably going to be a running back 3 if Fournette's active, or a running back 2 if Fournette is out. So keep an eye on those 3 o'clock games, and hopefully we get word of this before the noon kickoffs. If Fournette's out, I actually don't mind Corey Grant as a flex play. He had three catches for 59 yards last time these teams met in the playoffs, and if Fournette isn't playing, I expect he gets even more work than that. For the receiving game, Hearns, Lee, Cole, and Westbrook combined for 13 receptions for 187 yards and no touchdowns. If I'm picking one of them, I want Cole. He's the most likely one to see 8+ targets with no Lee and no Hearns anymore. I would rather not start any of them, though I've got them all as low end wide receiver 3s or lower. And then don't even touch the tight ends. They had 8 combined total yards last year in this matchup. And then you can bench you can't bench the defense because you shouldn't carry 2 and you're not going to drop the Jaguars, so you probably spent a 7th round pick on. Similar to Gronk, lower those expectations. And I'd rather look elsewhere than Lambeau because this is not going to be a real high scoring game. But Lambeau has been pretty good as a kicker for the Jaguars over the last, 14 games or whatever.
Kind of terrible as a field, though.
Lambeau is terrible as a field, yes.
Yes.
Hopper, with that transition, you've got another ugly game. Raiders at the Broncos. Broncos favored by 6, 46-point over-under on this one.
Unfortunately, starting with the Raiders, Derek Carr, this isn't the no-fly zone, but Carr's thrown for multiple touchdowns once in his last 9 games. He's only been over 300 yards twice in his last 8. So I'm not starting Derek Carr probably ever. Marshawn Lynch, Doug Martin, Jalen Richard. Lynch and Richard are both worthy flex considerations. Carson last week against the Broncos was efficient on his 7 carries versus Denver. And both he and Penny caught 3 balls, roughly 10 yards a clip on those for both of them. So that gives Richard, who was used a ton in the passing game last week, at least a decent floor. And then Lynch always has a chance to get you a touchdown, especially as a runner. He was right around 4 yards to carry against the Rams run defense. I think the Rams are a little bit better up the middle than the Broncos are, especially with their defensive tackles. And he racked up 55 yards there. As far as the wide receivers go, Amari Cooper and Jordy Nelson, Marshall and Lockett both had decent games in Baldwin's absence against Denver. So Amari's a definite start, kind of in that wide receiver 2 range. You drafted him to a point where you probably have to start him. It might not be pretty, but you kind of have to.
Yeah.
And then Jordy Nelson, I want him to prove it first, so I'm going to say avoid it. You've got better options than Jordy Nelson. And Jared Cook, Disley went for 103 against the Broncos, so they may choose to attack this way again. So Jared Cook could see volume and could be used, and especially through attrition, he is a start this week. He's targeted a team high 12 times with 9 receptions in week 1, so I think he is worthy. And Denver was 3rd in fantasy points allowed against tight ends last year.
Yep, and they've been bad for a long time.
So Jared Cook is a must start for me. That's it for the Raiders. Anything else?
No.
Nope.
No defense, no kicker there. I don't even know who their kicker is, and I don't really care. Graham, I think. Nugent.
I think it might be
Nugent sounds
It might
right.
be Nugent.
Sure.
I have no idea. For the Broncos, Case Keenum, the Raiders are tied for the second most games at 275 yards and 2+ touchdowns at the start of the 2017 season with 5. So I don't hate Case Keenum this week. Jared Goff had an efficient, passable day. You've got better streaming options, but you're in an emergency situation. He's startable. Royce Freeman, Phillip Lindsay, both should be flex plays in 12-team leagues. They split carries and are doing it against a not very good defense this week. So I think both of them will be efficient again. If anything, they may not have a ton of volume, but the efficiency should be there for both of those guys. Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, start them both. Raiders are terrible on defense, as is well documented on this show. Keenum showed he can support both of them, steer clear of tight ends. So basically, unless it's a tight end for the Broncos, you can start it. Defense, McManus, you're all good for them.
Yep.
Yeah, their defense is top 3 for me this week.
It's a good play.
Great
play.
Love all their receivers. This is going to be a fun week.
Yep. And Keenum's even could end up as a quarterback 1. So
Yep.
Outside shot there.
All right. That all we got on that game?
That's all I got on that game.
Let's go to Sunday night. Giants at the Cowboys. Cowboys favored by 3, 42-point over-under on this one.
So for the Giants, your starters, Barkley, OBJ. You start your studs. Flex position, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram in the defense. Shepard I think, is always going to be a decent flex, but there's enough volume for him. He was second on the team in targets last week with 7. And this is a team with Eli Manning that likes to use these multiple receiver sets, that like to get his receivers involved. I think Shepard even has a nice floor, and he even had a decent game against a good Jacksonville defense last week. As for Evan Ingram, I'm trying to lean away from him. He finished 4th in the team in targets last week with 5, 1 behind even Saquon Barkley. He's going to be fighting for that 3rd and 4th on the target totem pole. With the nutrition going south with this tight end position, I think it's gonna be very difficult to trust Evan, or it's gonna be difficult to sit Ingram. But I'm definitely fading him for sure. And
I don't think you can sit him. There's not enough games.
So just temper your expectations on him.
I had to start him.
It happens.
I lost Olsen in a dynasty league.
And then as for the defense here, Vegas views this game as Nick said, it's an over-under 42.5. Just with the messes of the offensive line for Dallas and Dak not really being able to do much, very one-dimensional offense. There could be some upside here if you're looking for a streamable defense. Mm-hmm. As for any more questions, comments, concerns, that one's really easy. As for Dallas, is probably even easier. You're going to start Zeke because you start your studs. Flex. Cole Beasley earns this. He's the wide receiver 1 in this offense, especially with how they want to use the throwing game here. It's a lot of underneath, a lot of intermediate routes. This is where Cole Beasley can make his day. If you're looking for a safer floor option with your flex position, I don't think you could do no worse than Beasley. May not give you the upside, but he'll at least give you the volume to give yourself a decent floor day. And then with this defense, it looked good last week. I think against Carolina, he got 3 sacks on Cam 4 times. And Eli Manning's not a stranger to just throwing these shitty-ass games, throwing in a bunch of interceptions because of this low-scoring game. I don't think it's a terrible stream this week either if you really need one. As for the sits, I'm still sitting Dak. I need to see more from this passing offense to trust him. This is probably not the worst matchup for him. There's just too many better options this week, and there's just not enough volume for Dak to do anything.
Mm-hmm. All right.
That.
Let's kick it to Monday. Seahawks at the Bears. Bears favored by 3 at home. Also a low over under this one of 43. We should only have probably a few starters on each side in this one as well.
Yep. Wilson, very much start your studs. So that's all I'm going to say about him. Karsten Penny, I'd avoid this if at all possible. Bears allowed 10th fewest points to running backs all last season. Green Bay struggled to get anything going in the run game against the Bears, and I would expect Khalil Mack and Roquan Smith to both factor into this one even more, which is just going to make that linebacking core even more stout. So stay away from that. The wide receivers for Seattle, Marshall and Lockett. Marshall, it is a revenge game for him. He was the most targeted in Baldwin's absence, so I'm leaning him if I have to start one. Bears were 18th in points allowed to wide receivers last year. They've returned pretty much the same secondary, or definitely the same secondary. Both guys are wide receiver 3, flex split type plays in a pinch. I'm just leaning Marshall. Revenge game. He's the bigger red zone target.
I lean Marshall too.
Yeah. As for Will Dissly, Chicago was 26 in points allowed against tight ends last year. He was outsnapped by Bennett. Could have just been a flash in the pan type thing. I don't want to run him out this week, even though you probably really ran out to get him on waivers. So,
don't know why you did.
Yeah. Seattle's defense is kind of in that fringe streamer area just because you do have a young offense trying to mesh, but I would probably stay away from it if I could. And Janikowski's a low-end streamer at best.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. That's all I got for Seattle. Anything else on them?
No. That's very chalk.
All right, moving on to Chicago. Trubisky, simply put, you don't start him until you see it. New offense that's still meshing. He may be fine for the NFL to start this season, but he's not going to be fine for fantasy. For Cohen and Howard, Howard's a high running back 2 play, and Cohen's a mid flex this week. Seattle gave up decent games to Freeman and Lindsey, and really, I think that Royce Freeman and Phillip Lindsey are a pretty good, younger kind of complement in comparison to what Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen are. So I'd expect both of them to give you very passable games this week. Howard I actually kind of like a lot because he is used in the passing game and the running game now.
Yeah, and I'm sure Nagy's going to try to keep the ball out of Trubisky's hands too, so they'll run them as much as he can.
Yep, and Cohen will also get used underneath and always has a chance to break one. Wide receiver is the only guy I want to run out. There's Allen Robinson. It's not because I love Seattle's defense. It's because I don't know who's going to be the wide receiver too. They try to get Gabriel involved a lot in the screen game, so he did have some targets and some catches last week, but not a lot of yardage. None of the other guys had a ton of volume, so until there's really some defined roles in this receiving core, Allen Robinson's the only one I want to run out there. And then Trey Burton was used more like a wide receiver in week 1. If there's a wide receiver 2 I'd want to start from the Bears, it's Trey Burton. That's just because I think that he's probably going to be more involved, more targeted, probably the second most targeted player.
Yeah, hopefully he has a better connection than he had in week 1. But he had 6 targets, so
maybe when he's wide open in the end zone, Trubisky can actually see
That's
him.
what I'm banking on. So that's all I got on this one.
All right, that wraps up our previews for week 1.
Oh, start the defense.
Yes, and start the Bears defense. So let's wrap it up and put a bow on this one. Wish you guys all the best of luck in week 2. Keep those start-sit questions coming. We'll keep you posted up to date with news if we hear anything on Twitter. Follow us there at BeerFueledFF. You can also check out the awesome can art photos that Dan's been putting on there. You can check out the beer reviews on Untapped. Remember to subscribe at YouTube. Beer Fueled Fantasy Football will be live at 10:30 in the morning Central Time. That's 11:30 Eastern. And if I'm doing my math right, it's about 8:30 in the morning Pacific Time. Grab some coffee, jump on with us, get us all your questions asked while you're setting your lineups before kickoff. We'll be there to answer all of them for you. Remember, Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. Hoping we can get 20 plus people up and asking questions this week. For Christopher Hopper, who's out of the room right now, at Hot BFF, we've got Dan Thury.
With 2 P's. At the BFF with 2 F's.
I'm Nick Sparts, and we'll catch you guys
Next time
on Beer Fueled Fantasy Football. Good luck in week 2.
Peace.
We can't drop the music. I don't know how to end this bitch.
We don't know what to do from this part.
This is going to be messy.
Yeah.
Here, let me just do it this way. Because I don't edit anything. This is going to be real messy. See ya. You did. You're going to have to learn. I think I just ended.